So
And
how did that differ from when your experiences in when you were at that first encounter in Crown Heights?
so, yeah, so we sat like right in front of the Rebbe, front and center. And I was like, all right, this is another spiritual leader. All right, man. All right, Rebbe, let's see what you got. And so I locked eyballs with him. And I'd say maybe I lasted 10, 12 seconds.
Really? Why? Why was
And
that?
then I went like this, like, whoa, okay. And then the Rebbe motioned for me to say, he went like this with the cup, and I'm like, what does that mean? What am I supposed to do? And so then Rabbi Garari said, here, fill up your cup, say L'chaim. I was like, all right, that I can do, no problem.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know, it was that gaze. I felt like this is a real spiritual leader. The fact that all these people who look so wise and seem
Mhm.
so wise, I didn't really know, but they looked
Mhm.
the part.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like Hollywood couldn't have done a better job.
Right.
And that yet they were all listening intently, to this person. Um, there's something here. There's definitely
Mhm.
something here, and because, like I was saying, especially the ones with the long white beards, they looked like Moses on the mountain to me. But they're listening to this one rabbi. He must have something really worthwhile to say. So they translated for us the Rebbe's talks, and then the singing in the middle. Um, and I just love the Rebbe's energy. Here he looked like an older gentleman already. Anybody who had a long beard looked like an older guy to me.
Right,
So
right.
Rabbi Garari, I thought, was like ancient history, and he was
Right.
probably 3 years older than me. But when I took the course, I was like, "Oh, this is my grandfather teaching the course, right?" So, um, so I said l'chaim, and um, I felt like after that weekend, I was saying that I love the Rebbe's energy when he stood up and he was clapping like this and
Mhm.
moving like this with his hands. I was like, this is like the coolest rabbi I've ever seen.
Mhm.
This guy is like amazing. So I felt like I wanted to learn more. I wanted
Mhm.
to get a better taste, like to really. So emotionally, it was a great experience, but I felt like I wanted intellectually to
Understand what was
to
going on.
understand
Mm.
more and to dig in more into the situation. And
Mhm.
so I went back to the university and finished up, and the I was supposed to go back to it was like already middle of December. And this I was had this job lined up to teach about geodesic dome building, organic farming, and I was really torn. Do I just stay or do I go back for another one of these weekends? Well, it's only like 3 days, so why not?
Mhm.
And but I was reading a book in one of my other religion courses that I was taking by a Russian author, and there was a lot of Christian influence in the book.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I don't remember if it was Dostoevsky or one of these famous Russian authors, um, but I was really into it,
Mhm.
and at the same time, conflict, because I felt like I was a little more Jewish now and sort of a little more into it, but not too much, you know. um, I will tell you that I think one thing that left a huge impression on me was Rabbi Garai invited a bunch of us from the class. He invited the whole class, but just a few people went to his house for Shabbat.
Mhm.
And so it was Friday night, and I I had never seen anything like that. Everybody they're eating together at the table. Nobody's rushing out.
Mhm.
Like Friday night, if my parents said, "Come sit down, we're gonna have a 2-hour meal together," like,
Right.
excuse me, how about 2 minutes?
Right.
That might be doable because
Right.
I'm out with my buddies, right?
Right.
There's a lot to be done on a Friday night in town,
Sure.
so I wasn't. Uh, I had never seen anything like that, and
Mhm.
how they were sitting down at the table together, and the parents are listening to the kids are listening to the parents, the kids are standing up on chairs and singing, and
Mhm.
it's lebedik, it's fun, it's interesting, and they're singing songs at the Shabbat table. And so when I left there, even though I was still like had my long curly hair, went past my shoulders,
Mhm.
um, and playing all these like hippie type songs on the guitar, peace, love, and happiness, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And, but I thought to myself, wow, they got something that is really pretty amazing,
Mhm.
And so I said to myself even back then, no matter what happens in my life, I want to do Shabbat. I want to
Yeah.
have I I wanna have that for my family, because
Right.
I thought it was something very sweet. Now, I could do anything else I wanted, I'm not g
Mm.
I sure as heck am not gonna keep kosher. I'm not gonna have
Right.
all these things about Shabbat, don't drive and don't do this and don't do that, right? But I'll be
But
a
just
free.
the meal, the
Right.
Friday night
The meal
meal,
sounds
yeah.
great.
Right.
The meal we can do, the singing we can do,
Right.
that's beautiful. And I'll even listen to the kids,
Right.
right? And maybe they'll listen to me. I'm not so sure about that, but anyhow, so to me the interesting thing was, um, so Rabbi Garai was supposed to pick me up on the Friday morning. We were going to drive from Buffalo to New York for this weekend, a second weekend pagisha, weekend encounter, and then I was actually going to go to the yeshiva in Morristown for like 3 4 days.
Oh, wow. That was
Uh,
brave,
yeah, yeah, right.
but that was to really understand things, right? To really
Yeah,
get
just
it. You
to
you were attached emotionally, you wanted to intellectually
right,
get it.
right. I wanted, and even the Rabbi Garar's course was very fascinating, both intellectually and emotionally. Uh,
Mhm.
I wasn't really, ready to make any life changes per se.
Mhm.